They thought she was only there to pass messages, repeat coordinates, and log transmissions. They thought she was invisible in the corner room, headphones on, clipboard in hand, quietly doing the job no one applauded. But everything changed the moment the general heard the one phrase no one was ever supposed to hear. Shadow 4. A call sign buried so deep in classified silence that even seasoned officers pretended it didn't exist. And suddenly the girl everyone overlooked became the most important person in the room. For a long time she believed her role was small, even though she carried the weight of hundreds of voices every day. She heard fear, bravery, confusion, and calm threaded through the static of incoming transmissions. She memorized patterns without trying, caught details no one pointed out, and sensed shifts in tone before alarms were triggered. But she still saw herself as the communications girl because that was what everyone else called her. It never occurred to her that the one thing she had been quietly mastering would become the one thing that could stop a disaster. The truth is that people underestimate the roles they don't understand. And she was one of those quietly underestimated souls who had spent years building a skill no one appreciated until the day everything depended on it. She learned early that the smallest roles often witness the biggest truths, and the lowest voices sometimes hear what the loudest voices miss. Her transformation began long before the general shouted for her to enter his operations room that morning. It started with nights she stayed behind studying old communication logs just to understand how decisions were made behind coded transmissions. It started with her habit of noticing inconsistencies in routine messages when others rushed through them. It started with her willingness to take every assignment seriously even when people dismissed her as someone who was only there to listen. The irony was that while the world saw her as someone who relayed other people's words, she was quietly building her own power through the one skill the others did not possess. She learned the emotional signatures behind voices. She could tell when someone hundreds of miles away was lying, when they were hiding something, or when a voice carried a warning no one else recognized. That instinct was sharpened not by authority but by observation. And it was the foundation that prepared her for the moment Shadow 4 resurfaced. Shadow 4 was more than a call sign. It was a ghost protocol, a signal that had not appeared in years and was believed to belong to a program that never truly made it to the public records. Only a handful of generals ever knew its meaning. She recognized it instantly not because she had been briefed but because she remembered studying an old abandoned log at 2 in the morning on a night she couldn't sleep. It contained a broken message referencing a mission that ended with an entire unit missing. She remembered it not because of its words but because of the eerie emptiness surrounding it. A transmission that looked incomplete but felt intentional. When the call sign emerged again, she felt a shiver of recognition. And that was the moment everything pivoted. The general demanded to know how she knew what it meant, and her answer changed the trajectory of the entire operation. She explained the tonal tension behind the voice sending the code. She explained why the message wasn't a distress call but a warning encoded inside a routine channel. She explained that someone was trying to signal danger to the base without alerting the ones monitoring the line. Her explanation rewrote the entire scenario unfolding in front of them. Suddenly she wasn't the communications girl. She was the one who understood what no one else did. The next phase of her transformation came when she had to stand her ground as officers twice her rank questioned her interpretation. She could have shrunk back into obedience, but she didn't. She understood that the voice behind the Shadow 4 transmission was not random. It was desperate in a measured way. Controlled panic layered under practiced calm. A pattern she only recognized because she had spent years listening to voices no one else thought mattered. She sensed coded rhythm, pause patterns, and vocal restraint that pointed not to chaos but to someone trying to send a message under threat. She explained that the sender had inserted slight frequency fluctuations to avoid detection from whoever was monitoring him. She pointed out details only someone who studied the human side of communication could interpret. And once she spelled it out, the entire room slowly recognized the truth. Someone had broken silence to prevent a catastrophe. Someone trusted only the one who could hear what others ignored. Her confidence did not come from rank or position. It came from understanding that communication is not just information but emotion, risk, and coded humanity. She had spent years learning the unspoken language behind spoken words. She knew that every transmission carries a fingerprint of intention. She knew that no encrypted machine can mask the essence of a fearful or determined soul. She knew that technology could hide content but not purpose. When she stepped forward and decoded the hidden emotional structure behind Shadow 4, she was offering something no algorithm or officer could replicate. Her voice was steady not because she was fearless but because she had trained herself to trust what she heard beneath the surface. She became the unexpected interpreter of danger, the quiet protector who had listened long enough to recognize when someone was fighting to be heard. And the general saw that. He saw skill disguised as routine. He saw potential disguised as obedience. He saw a mind that had sharpened itself through repetition and curiosity. And he realized the one person no one had ever asked for input was the one they needed most. As the operation unfolded, she stepped into a role she had never claimed before. She guided the decoding of layered messages as forces prepared for a rapid response. She translated shifts in the sender's tone to identify enemy proximity. She interpreted clipped breaths as signals of movement. She detected slight distortions in voice pressure to estimate altitude changes. Information that would normally be dismissed became actionable when filtered through her observational ability. She became the human map of the unseen battlefield, not through authority but through listening. And when the unit using the Shadow 4 signal was finally located, the general credited her analysis as the reason they arrived in time. But what mattered more to her was realizing that she had not been a background figure at all. She had been training for this moment without knowing it. Her years of unnoticed effort became the backbone of a mission that could have failed without the one person no one had expected to matter. Her story reveals a truth that echoes far beyond military walls. Every role holds unseen power when embraced with curiosity and depth. Every unnoticed task builds layers of intelligence. Every quiet effort becomes valuable in a moment that demands precisely the skill no one saw forming. She proved that expertise is not the reward of title but the result of dedication. She showed that leadership is not a position but a moment when someone chooses to step forward because they cannot let silence win. She demonstrated that the smallest voices can change the biggest decisions when given the space to speak. And she reminded everyone that human observation remains one of the most powerful tools in any mission, any team, any challenge. The general's acknowledgement of her ability did not elevate her because of pity or surprise. It elevated her because talent had finally been recognized. He later admitted he had never seen someone decode a crisis through nothing but voice analysis. He said her instincts were sharper than satellite recon. He said she had the rare ability to sense what others tried to hide. And she realized her contribution was not accidental. It was the result of years paying attention when no one asked her to. It was the reward of refusing to treat her job as mechanical. It was the power of choosing to care when others chose to overlook. Her journey is a reminder that roles do not determine potential. Passion does. Rank does not define intelligence. Curiosity does. And the next breakthrough in any field might come from the person quietly doing the job everyone takes for granted. She was called the communications girl because people saw only the surface of what she did. But underneath that surface was a mind trained by exposure to human complexity in its rawest form. She listened to voices at their most vulnerable, their most courageous, their most uncertain. And through those thousands of hours, she built a kind of expertise no classroom could teach. When the moment came for her to use it, she did not hesitate. She stepped forward not because she wanted attention but because she understood the stakes. And that clarity made her indispensable. Her experience teaches that every field contains invisible masters, people whose talents bloom in silence until called into the light. It teaches that the world often overlooks the very skills that later save it. It teaches that knowledge gained without recognition can still change everything. And it teaches that the quietest workers often see the patterns others miss because they observe from angles no one else occupies. Her rise from unnoticed operator to critical strategist was not luck or accident. It was the natural consequence of deep learning, constant attention, and the humility to keep growing even when no one applauded. She became the unexpected backbone of a mission because she listened not just to transmissions but to humanity itself. Her story continues to inspire anyone who has ever felt invisible in their work. It encourages individuals to trust the value of their effort even when unrecognized. It urges teams to listen to the people they overlook. And it challenges leaders to understand that brilliance often hides in ordinary roles. The moment Shadow 4 reappeared, History shifted not because of ranks or medals but because one person took her role seriously long before anyone realized how vital that role truly was. This is why her story matters. It is a story of quiet growth, unseen preparation, and courage that emerges from competence. A story that reminds us greatness rarely begins with recognition. It begins with one person choosing to master their craft long before the world needs it.